The past punchman review for which one did I win? Yeah, double or nothing. 2019, not 1919. I am Joe Renduo, and his punchman review was WCW Full Brawl 1996. So there you go.
Alright, well, anyway, let's get to business. Fall Brawl 1996. September 15th, that took place on September 15th, 1996. At the Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Attendance was 11,300.
Fuck, that was a long name.
Yeah. Alright, so we start off the show. The video package, and actually let me give some special thanks to Jack Brahma of 411 Media.
You're welcome.
Because I'm going to steal his review just for play-by-play. The show opens up. The video package is one of the better ones I've seen in WCW. I actually agree with them there. The production actually wasn't that great, but like he says, the content was pretty good. It covers the debut of Hall and the powerbombing of Bischoff, Hogan's turn, winning the belt off the Giant, DiBiase Giant turning and joining, Sting's apparent turning and joining, the whole NWO crew spray painting their way into infamy, and Luger and the Horsemen being left alone as WCW's only hopes. We start with Tony Brain and Big Dust, as he puts. Tonight it's WCW versus NWO and War Games. Dusty. Shockwave upon shockwave has been delivered at the doorstep of WCW. Nitro went off the air with Sting jumping Luger in the rain outside of a limo in an awesome segment so no one knows where he lies. Unless you're paying attention to the man that was dressed as Sting. Grudge match, Diamond Dallas Page versus Chavo Guerrero Jr. DDP has been running through a lot of Guerreros lately. Though he already lost the Battle Bowl ring to Eddie and had been upset by Chavo and Nitro. So Chavo gets this grudge match even though this is his pay-per-view debut with the company. Chavo comes hot off the blocks with a couple of drop kicks and a flip splash to the floor, sending DDP reeling. Chavo sends DDP into the guardrail as we're off and rolling with a frenetic start. Not satisfied, Chavo continues ragtagging him by throwing him into the stairs and getting a belt and laying into DDP. Dust whip him like a dog baby. Ref letting this go, and Brain jumps all over him that if Nick Patrick were there, he'd have DQ'd Chavo. Chavo slingshot in with the splash for a 1-2, only 2. Chavo with another crossbody for 2, and we finally slow things down with Chavo going to work the arm. Dust tries to explain why this match and tonight is such a big deal for WCW. Dusty, hearts were broken not only by Hogan but by Sting, but I guarantee you we really have to go for him tonight. Brain, normally I'd hate the commentators already talking, or I'm sorry, he's talking to Brain. We got to go for them tonight, Brain. Normally I hate the commentators already talking about the main event and Hogan, but that was Gold Transition. And it was absolutely, and it absolutely makes this match seem really important. Meanwhile, DDP tries to send Chavo off, but Chavo bangs on the arm and rolls through the back to the arm. That's pretty sweet. DDP keeps trying to put down Chavo by the hair, but Chavo keeps kipping up and and then takes down DDP and goes back to the arm. That was a solid sequence, but they have lost the crowd after the hot start. I don't know. I think they actually remained pretty hot the whole match through. However, that probably was a place where it did slow down a little. The match slowed down naturally. Dust worries that DDP will uncle and give up. Dusty. Chavo got him in the position to uncle him. And if he's going to self-destruct, as you say, Bobby, he's going to have to do it soon, because Dallas may uncle soon at War Games. You know what uncle mean. Brain, the opposite of aunt. Tony, it means to give up. DDP fights his way free, goes to a tilt-a-whirl, but Chavo arm drags through, and DDP gets hung up on the ropes. Chavo goes for a boss man attack, but DDP rolls out of the way, and Chavo eats the floor. DDP goes to the blatant choke as Brain takes over and puts DDP's early career over like nobody else. DDP has experience. He's been in the ring longer than the young man lying on his back right now. He's been in the ring with some tough people. This man has gone through $13 million. He's gone through being on the streets. He's been broke, tapped out, busted, and made it back. Big star here in WCW, and Mr. Guerrero is not going to ruin the light that's shining on this man. That's beautiful stuff. I can't do justice in describing how awesome it is for someone with gravitas and the credentials of Brain to really invest in a small-time backstory of a character's motivation. Back in, DDP springs off the top of the flying clothesline as the place comes alive for him. DDP drops a few boots and catches his breath by going to a front face lock. He rolls through for a 2 count. Unfortunately, Bobby's commentary does not prove fortuitous as DDP generically chokes and stomps around. Chavo small packages him for a close 2 count, and the crowd was into it again. DDP does the bang taunt to a pop, which is immediately followed by boos, which then both die out quickly. Strange reaction. DDP sends Chavo into the turnbuckle chest first, and then face plants him with a back suplex or 2. DDP is furious, so he works the cover for a few 2 counts. Tony, the youngster, will not stay down. Dusty, there's no quit in the Guerrero family. I guarantee you. Brain, I heard the whole family was quitters. That's the rumor I heard. Dust, well, you heard the wrong thing. I know him personally. Tony, you never heard that. Brain, I heard Eddie Guerrero is a quitter. I heard he's a quitter. The whole family is quitters. His dad got laid off 14 times in 1 week at a job. He's a quitter. That's what I heard. Tony, if you heard that, you're the only man in the history of the sport. Tony, with the history of the sports. There have been a lot of men in it that have ever heard that rumor. DDP goes to chinlock as the match can't seem to get much of a rhythm going, mainly because this heat is borderline shits. Yeah, I kind of disagree with that. The crowd was following the whole way through the big moves. Chavo tries firing up, not flirting. But DDP elbows him back for 2. DDP drifts into farce with his best flair routine of pantomiming Chavo, giving him head bang bang. I don't know what that sentence was. Before Chavo fights his way free, and DDP wipes him out with a flopping senton. During all this, Dusty drifts off into a monologue about War Games, which has no place in commentary right now, but is superb as well and deserves inclusion. I've been in many War Games, and I was one that was airlifted out because of broken ankle. I've been stitched up, most dangerous match. If you gone
If you're going and something.
If you're going to end something, thank you. Or finally make a statement. This is where you're gonna do it. War games right here. When the cage drops, you get cold chills. You ain't you ain't up for it. You ain't gonna be ready to play. I guarantee. Anyway, DDP telegraphs a back drop and Chavo knee lifts him off the mat. Chavo springboards in with a clothesline but doesn't cover. The crowd is popping for Chavo's moves, but not Chavo, kind of like they used to do with Mysterio. Chavo heads up top to hit a missile dropkick for a 2 count. Chavo heads up and flies into a Rana for also another 2 count. Chavo charges into the corner, but DDP gets the elbow. He covers with the feet on the ropes for a 2 count. No boost for cheating, but he's more popular than Chavo. DDP shakehans Chavo into the second rope and scoops him for a side slam for a 2 count. DDP tries again, but Chavo counters into a whirly bird. Chavo avoids a charge and schoolboys DDP for 2.9. DDP is all left with this lucha shit and goes for the spinning Liger bomb. DDP calls for the bang, but Chavo wants the backslide. DDP stomps his foot, spins him around into an ugly diamond cutter. More like an implant or cravat bulldog. But he gets the 3 count off of it. I actually thought this was a pretty good opener. I thought the crowd was hot for whatever both men did, and both men worked into it very well. It got the crowd going for a big night of wrestling. I ended up giving it a B. I'm sorry, I gave it a B plus actually. Meanwhile, Mean Gene gives up a special overview of the attack, the hostile takeover, Hall Nash's invasion, and then a follow-up with powerbombing Bischoff through the stage at Great American Bash, and Hogan turning, excuse me, at Bash at the Beach. The crazy gangland attack by the NWO before Hog Wild, and Hogan winning the belt there. Afterwards, the Giant turning and joining, and Sting apparently joining before WCW circled the wagons for War Games. Submission match. Scott Norton versus Ice Train. Yep. You should be really excited for this. Fire and Ice come raining down on each other. Rather than talk about this match, that would main event anywhere in the country, Tony says that if the NWO if they win tonight, want WCW to pay all the bills. And they want their own TV show, tag team tournament, limo service to pick up Hogan, their own private jets, catering. WCW draws the line at free food. Anyway, Ice Train has... Hello, my name is Teddy. As a manager, Teddy Long, I think is referring to. Yeah. And seeing as both guys tip the scales at over 3 bills and aren't exactly limber, this should blow. They argue about the rules before the match even starts, and Teddy wants Norton checked for weapons, even though he's wearing a singlet with no breathing room and that this is a submission match and all. Brain is the only one paying attention and brings up the damage from weeks prior to Ice Train's shoulder, and Dusty makes fun of him for saying something intelligent. Train goes to the arm for a few times, so Norton shoulder blocks him. Train comes back with a hip toss and shoulder block of his own. Dusty, very hard to uncle one of these guys, but that microphone ain't there to sing the Star Spangled Banner. Train with the world's strongest slam and goes for a splash, but Norton moves out of the way. Norton hits the DDT and mouths off to Teddy. Brain, he has no advantage knocking him out because he can't quit if he's unconscious. Dusty, not unless you're a good ventriloquist. he pretty much screwed up ventriloquist. Brain, a what? Dusty, a good ventriloquist. Norton with a back suplex and goes back to jawing with Teddy for no reason. Pretty much because there's not reason to go on with the match when you're just trying to catch your breath. Short arm clotheslines follows and Norton punches some more. Train comes back with a power slam and the worst camel clutch ever. It's so bad that Norton keeps rolling back and Train just falls into a chin lock. The ref can't even ask him to quit before Train says the hell with it, and it hits the snap suplex to crickets. Norton goes back with a clothesline and goes to an armbar. Tony exposes the business by chastising Norton for not pumping and cranking. The whole to break Ice Train's arm. Teddy can't bear the cruelty of putting the fans through this unbearable lateness of a submission and seeing the match go any longer. It climbs on the apron and throws in a towel. Instead, the referee waves him off so that these two can crawl over to an oxygen tank and finish catching a breather. Tony, I guess he can't quit. There's an awful lot of panting. So yeah, Tony pretty much pointed out. Norton hits a neck breaker or reverse jawbreaker if you're Tony. Norton lunges into the corner selling a whip from Train and gets hoisted up from a strenuous body slam. Tony says with ease. Train goes to a Fujiwara armbar, but that goes nowhere as Dusty keeps rambling about how big their arms are. Train with a clothesline and goes for a splash again, but Norton gets the knees up. Norton comes back with a spinebuster and rolls Train into a Boston Crab. Norton just releases it after a few, and now switches to his own Fujiwara armbar. Teddy distracts just long enough for Norton to apply a flimsy stranglehold gamma. Teddy can't stand it any longer and interferes, but gets choked off his feet in the process by Norton. Train attacks from behind and Norton submits to a master lock in 7 minutes and 21 seconds. Yeah, this is the worst match of the night. It just wasn't any good. I don't know why you put these guys in a submission match, especially when you have Benoit and Jericho literally on the same card, 2 matches down.
Would you really rather see that as a submission match?
I'm not going to dignify that one with a response.
Well, what kind of matches do you like these two to have? And I'll say
one that's not seen by the audience.
It's not even a dark match.
Not even a dark match. Yeah, F. Mexican Heavyweight Championship match. Juventud Guerrera versus Conan, who is the champion. Juvi has a mask still at this point. He trips over the ring steps, circling around the arena backwards. That bodes well. Conan has turned heel and joined the Dungeon of Doom since his debut earlier in 1996. Juvi uses some quickness to avoid Conan until he gets flipped over with a release German suplex. Dusty wants to know why Conan went evil and speculates it's because of the NWO. Brain steps in and says it's because he's been Americanized. He sends Juvi off again and picks him up for a flapjack before dropping him all the way to the floor. That might be a DQ, actually. Juvi regroups and springboards 3 times.
Just cruiserweight match.
Oh, right, yeah. He springboards 3 times in from across both rings into a spin wheel kick. He covers for only 2. Hoovy sends him into the corner for more kicks, and Conan bails him out. Hoovy follows out with a suicide dive, and Conan is major league half-assing it already. He walks Hoovy over to the guardrail and just waits for him to springboard before countering into a low down bomb. That was an awesome move, but the setup was kind of terrible. Back in, Conan's SWAT team rolls into a clothesline to a decent reaction as Dusty quizzes Tenay about what the entire country thinks of young Juventud. Conan hits a basement dropkick for 2. Conan goes to a lion ab stretch. He finally releases and sends Hoovy off and sidesteps a big boss man attack, and Hoovy sells it by leaping between the ropes in a unique spot, but one was not that greatly executed. Hoovy springboards into the second ring with Arana, but they get caught up in the ropes and torpedo the spot. Yeah, it's War Games, so if I didn't mention it before, in WCW it's two rings. In WWE it's also 2 rings as well. But this one has a roof on it, but we'll get to that later. Hoovy with a kick as Conan awkwardly stands there waiting and then bails out to the floor overselling. Hoovy flies out to the floor with a plancha that, again, Conan stands there for like a seat filler at the Oscars. Back in, Hoovy with another dropkick, but Conan backdrops him across to the other ring and hangs him out to drive on the top rope. Conan then swings him around for a power bomb back in the ring. That was slick and finally something that looked too good too. Conan applies a leg grapevine and switches into an STF rather than a wrestle competent match. Conan releases to let Hoovy go to the apron for another goddamn springboard. This time for a moonsault, but he shorts the jump and Conan can't get under him to catch him. Conan gathers him up for a third powerbomb of the match. Conan chop blocks the leg with a dropkick and follows up with rolling Germans. Hoovy decides not to sell it and instead to roll to the floor to regroup. Hoovy, fuck, you can hear on camera. After catching his breath, Hoovy springboards him with a missile dropkick and guillotine leg drop for 2. They roll to the apron with no transition at all as Hoovy can set up Arana into the ring. Instead, he drops down from an Arabian MDK bomb, but Conan blocks and just hits a dropkick. Tony, it's obvious they take a lot more risks than American wrestlers. Bobby, it's obvious to me he's had an attitude change, and that's good. Here in WCW, you can't come in and pussyfoot around. Tenay, what? Bobby, you better be a man. You gotta build up a reputation and take some people out. Anyway, Hoovy crotches Conan up to the top and calls for a top rope Rana. Instead, he black flips back to the mat and without even trying for Rana. Conan drop kicks him down. That's it. I give up. Hoovy counters a monkey flip into a roll up for 2. Hoovy counters a top rope. Rolls up again for 2. They counter some suplexes before Conan pulls him over the ropes for another apron counter. Hoovy trampolines in for the 53rd time and hits another spin wheel kick. He covers for 2. He goes for a wheelbarrow roll up, but Conan counters into a beast slingshot wheelbarrow suplex. He covers for nothing as they get tied up near the ropes. Hoovy hits another dropkick as the wheels come off 5 minutes ago, and now they are trying to strip what's left of the match and sell it for parts. Hoovy then pulls Conan down, and Conan hangs onto the top rope and set up the spot. Even though he just has to let go to avoid it. WCW violating Newton's laws of motion, one match at a time. Hoovy front flips into leg drop and covers for nothing in the ropes again. That's twice they've botched getting into position. Hoovy goes up top and hits the 450 for a 2.5. Tony compliments Nick Patrick's officiating, and Dusty is skeptical about NWO evil Nick. Mike, what would be the international ramifications of Nick messing this up? Tony, I don't think Mike knows what ramifications is. Hoovy has officially lost his mind as he climbs the top rope and looks to be making up as he goes, because he flops off a 360 and falls onto Conan like he was clipped by a sniper. Conan counters the up and over with the Alabama Slam. Conan bridges into a cover for 2.5. They're blown up in a way normally reserved for Scott Steiner, but Conan covers with a muscle buster that completely folds up Hoovy for a near fall. Tony, this has been like a car wreck in many ways. Conan finishes him off with a Splash Mountain in 13:48. I didn't think this match actually was as bad as the review says. Yeah, it was sloppy in parts. I think they were trying to do too much with it, and they ended up just losing everything in it. But actually, it was a rather entertaining match. I gave it a B-.
Do you want to go to the next video?
I can just go through.
No, you can.
Actually, let me go to the shorter. Actually, no, let's cut this off in the second half. So I'll go to a different review that seems a little shorter.
We'll be back with part 2.
Part 2.